Welcome to Social History of England, Unit 2, Chapter 3, Reformation. Now, what is the meaning of Reformation? Reformation. It means changing something into a totally different thing. And what was that which was changed? It was religion. If you recall what we learned in Renaissance, you can understand that there are three major features of Renaissance, and the second feature is secularism. Artists and scholars gave importance to secular writings, that is, they wrote about the goodness of life. And slowly they started moving away from religion and morality. There is a reason why they moved away from religion, because there were several problems with religion. And we are going to see some of the problems that led to Reformation or a complete change in the principles of religion. The first problem was that there was a quarrel between the Pope and the King. Both of them wanted power for themselves. They did not care about the people, and the popes always won, and the kings had to obey whatever rule was passed by the popes. And they had to even collect taxes from the people. Separate taxes for churches were collected apart from other taxes for the country. The kings also had to send their knights to fight in the crusades or the holy wars. Point number 2. Sinful popes. Can popes be sinful? The question itself is a question. The popes claimed government lands. They asked the kings to surrender lands for the church, and they had their own court called as the ecclesiastical court, where judgment was given upon the sins of the poor, and the punishment for these sins were often horrible. For example, a man who stole a piece of bread out of hunger was skinned alive, and this was called as flaying. The popes indulged in sinful pleasures and appointed their relatives to high posts. Giving favoritism to relatives is called as nepotism. The immorality of certain popes who were often drunk caused the people to revolt against the popes. Point number 3. Indulgences. What were indulgences? It was a system invented by the popes wherein rich people could enter heaven by paying a huge amount for their sins. So, they were forgiven and they were accepted into heaven. Then what about the poor? Indulgences erased all sins, depended upon the money given by the people. A low amount meant a little bit of sin that was forgiven. Popes collected large sums in the name of indulgences to construct the famous St. Peter's Basilica, a large church in Rome. John Wycliffe, a translator of the Bible, opposed this practice. At the time, Bibles were available only in Latin, and the priest tricked people into following Latin they did not understand, and they even mentioned certain rules which were not even written in the Bible. So John Wycliffe translated the Bible into English as the common people could not understand Latin. The translation was considered a sin by the Pope. The Reformation began in proper with Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a German monk. He nailed a document with 95 points against the practices of indulgences to the door of the Whittenburg Church on October 31, 1517. This was terrible as the popes were shocked, and this was also a direct insult to them. Luther was excommunicated, that is, he was removed from the service of the church, and all his books, writings were burnt. But this made him even more popular in the eyes of the people. A large group of people started following Martin Luther as his 95 Theses were practical indeed. His followers were called Protestants as they protested against the Pope. Reformation reached England when Henry VIII sat on the throne. Henry VIII was married to Catherine of Aragon, the widow of his brother. Now he was in love with Anne Boleyn, the lady-in-waiting to Catherine. He wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, and for this he had to divorce Catherine. The practice of divorce was not common in Roman Catholicism, so the Pope refused to grant the king a divorce. Henry VIII took revenge in the name of cutting off all ties with the Pope. He called himself Defensor Fidei, or Defender of the Faith, and refused to pay religious tax to the Pope. He dissolved all the wealthy monasteries, he burned them, he broke into them, he took away all the wealth of the church, and he claimed all church lands for himself. But though he did all of these, he was still a Roman Catholic. He did not follow Protestantism. He did this so he could marry Anne Boleyn. It was strictly a personal decision. Point number 6, the whip with 6 strings. 6 articles were issued by Henry VIII. These 6 articles were based on Roman Catholicism. As I already mentioned, he did not become a Protestant, though his quarrel was with the Pope. His successor, his daughter, Mary I, burned Protestants, and she reintroduced Latin prayers and Latin Bibles. The next successor, Queen Elizabeth, sister of Mary, followed a peaceful rule, but she introduced a common prayer book. The Protestants were still not happy because none of their rules were followed by the rulers of England, and England was still following Roman Catholicism, though they had cut off all ties with the Pope. These 6 articles were followed by Queen Elizabeth also, and it was called as the whip with 6 strings because it was very strict. Point number 7, Calvinism. John Calvin of France wanted peace and hope over religious dominance. He was frustrated over all these quarrels. All of them were Christians at heart, and he promoted trade and knowledge over religion. Calvinists opposed feudalism, or the dominant form of government at the time. This led to the horrible St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, when thousands of Protestants were killed in France. The Reformation did not stop with John Calvin. It continued even when the settlers escaped and went into America. It followed them into America as well, and reformations are still common even today. Thank you for watching this. I hope it was easy and I hope you understood what is Reformation.